Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, if you are listening to the sound of my voice, then you tuned in to another episode of Marking Out Amongst Friends, the podcast. It's your boy, Jay Reedy in the building. And you know, if I'm in the building, I am never here alone. I always roll pretty deep, at least one deep. So by my side, it's going to be Miss Swerves and Curves herself, the one, the only Lady Great One. Say hi to the people.
What is up, my beautiful people? How are we all doing this evening?
Tell you what, we got a jam-packed episode for you tonight. Today is February the 28th, the last day of February. February, also known as Black History Month. Now, on our previous episodes of Marking Out Amongst Friends this month, we have not mentioned anything about Black history. As many times as we've mentioned a lot of Black stars, we haven't really spent a lot of time on this, especially when we're doing our predictions and we're doing our recaps for pay-per-views. So I wanted to show some time to give some love to some of the guys who paved the way for the current generation, some of the first. But before we get into any of that shit, you know what it's time to do. Hit my damn music.
He looks like a fan.
Yeah. Marking out.
He was marking out, man.
450 off the top with the top.
Splash.
Leader of the new school, ain't no way to stop us. Mark it out, screaming loud, tell me who you with. Competition is none, cause we lunatics. Walk with me down these roads if you're all in. I love the feeling, baby, time to go to work again. Come together like a fist and we do it proud. Light it up and burn it down, cause we marking out.
He was marking out, man.
All right, for those people who are just now tuning in to us, if you've never heard that song before, that is the official Marking Out Amongst Friends, the podcast theme song, written and performed by the boy, the official Chill P. Follow him on Instagram at the official Chill P. If you know me on Facebook in real life, if you want to hop on that friends list, go ahead and follow him at Chill Edwards or Adam at Chill Edwards on Facebook. While we're giving out social media, if you want to go ahead and follow me at Mr. President 1286 on the Instagram, as the young people participate in. Instagram is the devil. I don't know if you guys spend a lot of time on Instagram, but especially for men, Instagram is definitely the devil. I try to stay off of there as much as possible. Anyway, when it comes to Black History Month, Lady Great One, who are some folks that kind of stick out to you as far as Black wrestlers? Could be now, could be back then. Who are some of the people that you think are the most impacting when it comes to wrestling?
Well, for me, some of the most impactful have been one, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the woman first because, of course, I am the woman of this show. So I'm going to start off with Jacqueline, the first ever woman to hold the Cruiserweight Championship. I think Jacqueline played such a huge role in a male-dominated sport, just like China also did. But this is not about China right now. It's about Jackie. But she was just like one of those women, and I always look forward to. She is a Hall of Famer, and I definitely got to give my props there for Miss Jacqueline this month, especially being Black History Month. Another one of the people who I really also looked up to was Ron Simmons, aka Farouk, depending on where you check them out. One of the leaders of the Nation of Domination, also another Hall of Famer. And he's got one of the easiest catchphrases in the WWE to ever grace a screen.
And what would that be?
Letters just saying, "Damn."
Damn. Love
Somebody
Ron
hit it
Simmons.
like him. I know it didn't sound that great, but still, Ron Simmons is the man. So I had to give it up there. Very, 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 very great athlete. Him and Bradshaw was the APA. That was one of my favorite tag teams there. I mean, beer drinking, cigar smoking, like getting it in type guys. I love the APA. So and before that, they were the acolytes. So either way it goes, Ron Simmons always did a great job. So much props there during this month. And those are the two I'm going to leave it at because they paved the way for a lot of people who are some of my favorite stars today.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I'm gonna go off of the top of the head, I'm very old school when it comes to this thing. Even though I'm only 32, I've been watching wrestling since I was a little kid. So definitely, when you mention Ron Simmons is definitely one that sticks out um, as a child. Definitely the Junkyard Dog. By the time I was growing up, I think he was starting to come out of wrestling, but he was still probably one of the biggest non-champions that was a super huge star. He was somewhat as, a lot of people would compare him to as over as Hulk Hogan in his time. So definitely shout out to the Junkyard Dog. There's a lot of people that are going to stick out. So there's a couple of people that I want to give a shout out to. I'm definitely glad that you brought up Jacqueline. Because when I come up with a list of people just to name some accolades, when it comes to the women's division, Jacqueline definitely paved the way for a lot of stars. First, like you said, first ever African-American women's champion in WWE history. Of course, she was preceded by multiple other women such as Jazz. I used to count Ivory, but recently I realized that Ivory's not technically black, so we can't really count Ivory. We tried to throw you in there, Ivory. You did a lot of good work with Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown back in the day, but you couldn't quite make the cut. Same goes for Taz. I always consider Taz a black champion, but it's still one of those things that is kind of up there. We're not really sure if he's black or not. He could just be a dark, Italian, Mediterranean, maybe Moroccan. So
Maybe Samoan.
Yeah, maybe Samoan. The verdict is still out there on Taz. I promise if I find out in the future, I'll go back and I'll apologize. But while we're on the subject of women, there's a lot of black women's champions in the past, but I definitely want to give a shout out to some of the newer stars, specifically two, right off the bat. One that you have been pretty much critical of in the past, but not as much now, and Sasha Banks. Now, Sasha Banks, can you guys hear me out there? Testing, 1, 2.
I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. So if you ask me a question, I didn't hear a word.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. If you guys are new to the show, if you guys are just tuning in, just to let you know, we are very transparent on this show. We have technical difficulties every now and then. Hey, we have bad signal from time to time. We are still, new. We're still fresh. So if you guys are expecting professional sound quality, we might not be able to deliver that every week. But I was mentioning Sasha Banks, who you've been critical of in the past. Both of us have kind of been critical of in the past. As far as current stars, Sasha Banks, when I go down the list of the firsts when it comes to black wrestlers, the youngest overall women's champion, Raw women's champion in history at age 24. She's also the first and only black Raw women's champion ever. She is the first black NXT women's champion ever. Now that the Boss Hug Connection has won the first ever WWE women's tag team titles, that means effectively she's the first black women's champion as far as the tag team titles. She is also tied for fourth most reigns in WWE history for the Raw women's title at 4, tied with Charlotte Flair. Another person I want to give a shout out to when we're talking about the women, much appreciating Naomi. Now, Naomi has started off very rocky in her WWE career as a Funkadactyl, primarily a dancer, didn't get a lot of singles opportunity, but she has worked her way up the roster. She's proven night in, night out that she's one of the most athletic, one of the most high-flying women that you can see on WWE television as well. Naomi has tied for the most reigns, on the SmackDown's women's title currently, as she has 2. She's also tied with Charlotte Flair as well as Alexa Bliss and the man Becky Lynch. Naomi is also the first and only black SmackDown Women's Champion in WWE history. Also, let's give her credit for having the 3rd most combined days as a SmackDown Live Women's Champion. So the women's revolution is definitely not left out when it comes to Black History Month. We're showing love to the women who have paved the way. Now for the main event, as far as people who have paved the way for current stars, some of the past stars, let's just go down the list. Bobo Brazil, the first ever heavyweight champion in wrestling. A lot of people credit Ron Simmons, who we mentioned earlier tonight, as the first heavyweight champion when he was WCW's first heavyweight champion. But actually, Bobo Brazil, first NWA heavyweight champion back in 1962, defeated the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers to win his first title. Not only is Bobo Brazil the first ever heavyweight champion, he's also the first U.S. champion, mid-card title, first ever United States champion. He did not win that championship until 1977. Now, why am I bringing up the U.S. title? The U.S. title seems like it's not a big title that a lot of people care about. There's a lot of lineage behind the U.S. championship. But also, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up is after Bobo Brazil was the first ever U.S. champion, there was not another U.S. champion that was black throughout the NWA or WCW until 2001 when Booker T won the title, and he was the last U.S. champion in WCW before WWE and Vince McMahon bought him out. So Booker T, while we're on the subject of Booker T, multi-time champion, 6-time heavyweight champion, 4-time U.S. champion, 13-time tag champion, 10 times with Harlem Heat, 7-time TV champion. He is the only person ever in WCW history to hold the U.S. title and the World Championship at the same time. There's only 2 people in history between WCW and WWE who have held the U.S. title and the World Championship at the same time. The other person, none other than Seth Rollins. So Seth Rollins and Booker T, hell of company for both of those guys. While we're going down the list of prominent guys who have made a huge impact, while we're waiting on Lady Great One right now, Lady Great One is experiencing some difficulties. We'll get her back on the line shortly. Naming some of my favorites here. Mark Henry. Mark Henry's a 3-time champion in WWE. 1-time world champion. 1-time ECW champion. I could think that would mean that he is the only the first black ECW champion. And Lady Great One, I think she's coming back on the line here. I want to see if you can confirm this for me as well. Is Mark Henry the first ever ECW champion, the first ever black ECW champion?
I am actually unsure about that. I believe he is, but I am unsure. I think he did make a moment with that. I remember watching a documentary the other week, so I'm going to fact check that. So you can go ahead and move to the next thing that you were talking about. I'm going to fact check it for you.
All right, no problem. So we mentioned Ron Simmons earlier today, first ever WCW black champion. Also a Hall of Famer, multi-time tag team champion, 2 times with WCW, 3 times in WWE. Also a former U.S. champion as well. I like naming some of these first guys because a lot of things growing up, a lot of people said that black people don't get a lot of opportunity in wrestling. Correction. Black people are very prominent in professional wrestling. Black superstars have been around for decades. The thing is, you don't see a lot of heavyweight champions that are black champions. As a matter of fact, most of the guys that are on this list right now are indeed black heavyweight champions or were black heavyweight champions. Even The Rock. A lot of people don't want to consider The Rock a former black champion because he's half Samoan and half black. Got to give The Rock his credit. He's the first and only WWE champion, African-American WWE champion, which he held that title 10 times. For you personally, What side of the fence were you on? Because I've had this argument, I've had this debate with a lot of people. Why do you think it is that a lot of people don't like to consider The Rock as a black heavyweight champion?
A lot of people don't do that just because of the simple fact that his mother is Samoan and his father is black. So, because he doesn't quite look black, because he doesn't quite have 100% black in his family, that does not make him any less black, because as a mother to biracial children, both of the children are considered black. So
talk to him. Talk to him now.
It's really just a matter of thing. If you have even 50% black, 9 times out of 10, you're still considered black. So there should be no exception this time either.
Damn straight. What did they say what was the 2-drop rule back in the day? If you have 2 drops, you consider black. We gotta start repping The Rock, y'all. You know, The Rock was
rep Sasha Banks.
They say we rep Sasha Banks. You gotta rep The Rock. You know, everybody wants to say that. You know, people only recognize his Samoan side. Samoans have a very long lineage in wrestling, just like African Americans do. So if The Rock wants to celebrate his Samoan side, hell, let him celebrate his Samoan side. But he definitely celebrates his black side too. One reason you can now always count him as a black champion. What other wrestler do you know that came out in $500 Versace shirts every week? If that's not a black superstar to you, he comes out with sunglasses, $500 Versace shirts, making Jay-Z references, rocking a fresh fade back in the day. I don't know if you can really get more black than The Rock was back in the day.
The Rock was the man. Simple as that. Get on with it.
Absolutely. Black people just stop it. All right, we got to consider The Rock as the first black champion. So we went down the list. I mentioned Booker T earlier. Booker T is probably the most decorated African American champion in wrestling history. A lot of people may disagree with that, but Booker T has had a lot of firsts. We mentioned Mark Henry. Ahmed Johnson. That was a name that probably people didn't think that I was going to throw out today. Ahmed Johnson is actually the first African-American singles champion in WWE history. This was in the 90s, Toya. This was in the 90s.
I know.
How long has WWE been around?
River plunge.
Ahmed Johnson was the first black singles champion in WWE history, the first black intercontinental champion. Now, of course, he's been preceded by many other intercontinental champions, just to name a few. Shelton Benjamin. Just to name another one, Bobby Lashley, who was just recently Intercontinental Champion. By the way, when Bobby Lashley won the Intercontinental Champion, it's not a really well-known fact. Bobby Lashley was the first black Intercontinental Champion in, I think about 5 or 6 years when he won the Intercontinental title. There hadn't been a black Intercontinental Champion since 2013 before Bobby Lashley won it, most recently.
I believe that Kofi was the last one.
You damn right. You are damn right. That was exactly my segue into the next person. Now, when we talk about active stars that are in wrestling currently, there is nobody that is more decorated in wrestling, that is still wrestling right now, than Kofi Kingston. And the great thing about Kofi is that all of his accomplishments that he's gotten, he's done it in 11 years. There's only one thing that he's yet to do, and that's win a main event title. So he hasn't been WWE champion. He hasn't been the World Heavyweight champion. But 15 total titles for Kofi Kingston. Okay? 4-time Intercontinental champion, 3-time U.S. champion, 8-time tag team champion. He's had 5 different partners in 4 different teams as a tag champion. So that means that Kofi Kingston, if you want to be tag champion, tag up with Kofi Kingston. Kofi also has the most combined days as a tag team champion in WWE history. So he had 975 days. Another one, if somebody wants to fact check me on that one later on, they can. But 975 days, I don't think that anybody else is close. If Kofi Kingston was to win the tag team titles in WWE at least one more time before he left, and he had that title for 25 more days, he would be the only person to have held a WWE Tag Team title for 1,000 combined days.
And that is awesome. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. I love Kofi. I think that he is so talented. He is a very, very positive role model, and that's something that we don't have a whole lot of. Kofi is one of those guys who has respect in the locker room. He has respect everywhere he goes. I mean, I can't just sing the praises of Kofi enough. So if you want to debate me on that one, there is no debate. I'm going to go with Kofi every time when you pick somebody who is truly deserving of a spot and somebody who is just awesome. I can't even think of another word. Amazing, incredible, awesome.
Absolutely.
I love that man.
Absolutely. Now, Kofi Kingston is one of those guys. Now, he's primarily been considered a mid-carder or a tag team superstar, evidently so, after I just went down all the accolades that he's got. A lot of people are saying that, you know, he's getting his just dues now by now showing what he could do in the ring and now kind of being considered into the main event picture. He's been getting a lot of support lately. Why do you think it is that a lot of people weren't necessarily behind Kofi? And I won't say weren't behind him, but why do you think Kofi was constantly overlooked over the last couple of years?
No offense to the New Day whatsoever, but in a way, like, it was considered a joke. For a while, the New Day is considered a joke. They're fun. So in order to be champion, people have to start taking you seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think that just recently, when Kofi was thrown in that spot of Mustafa Ali, what he was going to do, that made people like, oh, shoot, Kofi ain't no joke. Like, we've seen him joking around and playing and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden, here he is being dominant. So I think that's one of the things that kind of hindered him because people didn't take him seriously.
I can definitely agree with that. Kofi has had somewhat of an, I'm not going to say Kofi has, but WWE has given Kofi somewhat of an identity crisis as a single star since he started out. Of course, he started out with the Jamaican gimmick. He kind of eased away from the Jamaican gimmick and went more into his real self. So we realized that he wasn't really Jamaican, but that kind of ruined a couple of years of us thinking that he was. But in that time frame, he went from Jamaican to American. We saw him feud with Randy Orton years ago, and he showed flashes of the talent that he does have, that he possesses. He's shown that he can perform on the big stage. He's always one of the guys to look out for in matches like Money in the Bank matches or the Royal Rumble, where he's going to give you an innovative way that he's going to get back into the ring every single year. So definitely you can say he's one of the most creative stars in WWE history. But when he gets on the big stage, when given the opportunity, and he doesn't get a whole lot of them, he always shows that he's ready for a big match. He's got big match ability. And in this day and age, if you got big match ability, that is definitely something that's going to get you a long way. You know, people who always have talked about Dolph Ziggler, people who have always talked about people like Seth Rollins, you know, people have always talked about people like AJ Styles, you know, even Big John Cena. You know, a lot of people say these guys are big match people. When the spotlight is on, that's when they perform at their best. Shawn Michaels. Kofi Kingston is now being placed in that class. Do you think that is rightfully so, or do you think that we're kind of overhyping him a little bit?
Oh, and to add to what you were talking about before, when we were talking about the list of champions, I'm not trying to change the subject, but there's just a couple of people who needed a little bit of a shout out there. One would be Ezekiel Jackson, who was the last ECW champion, and also the current United States champion, and one R-Truth.
R-Truth has also got to be one of the oldest U.S. champions that I can think of as well. R-Truth, A lot of people don't realize this as well. R-Truth is 47 years old and is the Intercontinental Champion. I mean, not the Intercontinental, the U.S. Champion right now. So he's got to be one of the oldest U.S. champions that has been in WWE history or WCW history for that matter. He's also a former heavyweight champion, former NWA heavyweight champion with TNA. So R-Truth definitely part of that whole black excellence that we were speaking of. Harlem Heat I mentioned earlier. New Day we've mentioned before. Shout out to Crime Time. They didn't win any titles, but they were definitely one of the most over tag teams when they were around. Shout out to the Prime Time players. Titus Worldwide. Titus still making waves. Darren Young, unfortunately, no longer in the company. Definitely wish him on the best in his future. But to keep up with Kofi for a second, as I was stating before, do you think that us putting him on that big match level, do we think that this is overhyping Kofi, or do you think this is a spot that he belongs in?
I say that this is his spot, his time. I mean, he can't actually be in more of a better position. So I think that this is just well-deserved and long overdue.
Damn straight. So Kofi Kingston, I'm going to spend some time on him. This is going to segue us right into our next topic. So this week on SmackDown, Vince McMahon made a special appearance on SmackDown. Interrupted Kofi right before he could sign the contract to his one-on-one match for the WWE Championship with Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. Vince McMahon interrupts him, says, hey, you're not a big enough star. You don't deserve to have this spot. I'm replacing you. Who does he replace him with? None other than the returning Kevin Owens. Now, a lot of people were happy. Kevin Owens got a huge pop when he came out. He's definitely one of the guys that fans really love and have been behind him ever since his days in the Indies as Kevin Steen. How did you feel realizing that Kofi Kingston was getting pulled from this match and Kevin Owens was getting plugged in?
The first thing that came in my mind was Kofi Mania is set. That's all I could think about. Is they're actually going to save this for WrestleMania? I mean, that was the only thing that crossed my mind. Like, wow, what's the story? How are they going to spin this? What's really going to happen? I mean, because Vince is overriding every decision because this is not the first person he did it to. The first person he did it to was Becky. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be something big that's going to happen at Mania. And so Kofi's going to get his Mania moment.
Okay. And I would say that I thought the same thing. The first thing I thought to myself, okay, this means Kofi's going to get plugged into the Mania match. Now, there's been a lot of speculation since that they could end up plugging Kofi back into the Fastlane match and we could see a triple threat. I think that I would much rather see Kofi Kingston getting a shot at WrestleMania, kind of having the boyhood dream moment, as he's never won a main event title before. Why not on the biggest stage of them all? It's not like, Kofi wouldn't have the fan support, so to speak, because we've seen how loud the fans have gotten for Kofi in the last couple of months. My only thing is, because he's kind of just now getting like this huge boost of support, is what type of character are they going to turn Kofi into if he does become the new WWE champion? A lot of speculation saying that he might break up with the New Day. Do you think it's time for the New Day to go about their separate ways?
Considering the fact that the New Day is the longest faction combined that has not broken up, has not had an issue since their inception over 4 years ago, then yes, I could see it being time for the New Day to go ahead and disband because of jealousy over Kofi getting that spot and not possibly Big E.
I think I'm torn on this one. And I'm going to tell you why I'm torn. The New Day, when they were formed, these guys were supposed to be jobbers. Kofi Kingston, once again, he's been considered a career tag team and mid-card guy. Then you got Xavier Woods. He didn't really do much in WWE by the time this team formulated. Big E, he was paired up with two big stars. He kind of fell off as far as singles competition goes. We saw him take a couple of losses to Rusev during Rusev's run as his first United States Championship run. So these guys were considered to be jobbers. They were considered to be on the same level as 3MB. You know, they didn't have the support, and it was their talent, their way to come up with a gimmick, and it was their creativity that allowed them to be as over as they are. Like you said, fast forward years later, these guys are probably one of the most decorated stables in WWE history. They've spent the longest time together as a stable in WWE history than anybody else. They've not removed or added anybody to the stable over the years. It's just been those three. I'm scared to see this team break up. You know, it's not like how it was when the Shield broke up and you knew that all three of them were going to be main eventers. You know, I'm scared that if you break the New Day up, most of those guys are probably going to fall down the card. I don't think that they're ready to consider Xavier Woods a top star yet. I don't think that they're ready to full-on consider Big E a top star. A lot of people saying that he should be. But I don't think that they're full-on ready to consider Big E as a top star. And I don't know if once Kofi is out of this whole Daniel Bryan feud, I don't know if the support is going to be there fanship-wise for him to continue to stay in that tweener role as a main eventer / mid-carder, one of those roles that you see a lot of people like The Miz in or a lot of people like Jericho in. I don't see Kofi in that same role either. So I'm scared to see the New Day break up, so to speak. But if it happens and it results in Kofi Kingston becoming, you know, the World Heavyweight Champion or the WWE Champion, I guess I can't argue with it. You know, it's character development. Can't be mad at that.
Very true. Very true, my friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's really, because this is a short month, it's really a short show tonight. You know, usually we go about an hour and a half. Didn't really have a whole lot to expound on. I just wanted to leave everybody with a good, you know, Black History feeling on a lot of our stars that we've grown up watching and some of the newer stars that we're watching now. We can jump right into our final thought. Lady Great One, what's something that you want to leave us with a final thought? You got any of the stars that we may have missed that you want to throw out there?
Yes, there is one female in particular that comes to mind that you did not miss. Alicia Fox being the first ever Divas champion of African American descent. So even though she's had some crazy gimmicks and things like that, got to give it up to Alicia Fox. She's been one of my favorite characters just because she's fun. And anything asked of her, she does. She's been there. She's a veteran. So definitely got to give it out to Alicia Fox as well. And that is my final thought.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, my final thought tonight is going to be more so of a somber note. I hate really leaving you guys with a somber note, but in this instance, Howard Finkel. Howard Finkel, WWE legend, legendary announcer, ring announcer, is on declining health right now. Probably doesn't have too many days left or too much time left. We definitely don't want to wish that on him. But he's definitely on his sick bed right now. So if you guys are listening to the show, if you know who Howard Finkel is, definitely send up some good mojo, some prayers up to Howard Finkel, and let's hope that he pulls through. Other than that, that'll be my final thought. Quick show, short show. We'll be back again next week for the predictions for Fastlane, and that'll kickstart the last leg of the road to WrestleMania. We're getting to Mania quickly here. All right, but other than that, this has been another episode of Marking Out Amongst Friends. Marking Out Amongst Friends out. But before we do that, we're going to one more time hit my damn music.
He looks like a fan.
Marking out.
He was marking out, man.
50 off the top with the topics. Leader of the new school, ain't no way to stop us. Mark it out, screaming loud, tell me who you with. Competition is none, cause we lunatics. Walk with me down these roads if you're all in. I love the feeling, baby, time to go to work again. Come together like a fist and we do it proud. Light it up and burn it down, cause we marking out.